Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, bon matin, bonjour, bonsoir, jumbo, and welcome to the first African e-waste conference here from Nairobi, Kenya. The theme is unlocking the potential in sustainable e-waste management while achieving a circular economy. My name is Simone Anderson. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at WEEE Centre, and together with the whole of WEEE Centre, I'm honored to be hosting these 3 days of knowledge sharing, interesting talks, discussion, and benchmarking opportunities. Thank you for being with us. We have more than 50 experts to share insights on topics like regulations and policies, standards and practices, innovation and technology, capacity building, awareness creation, circularity, and resource recovery. Meet all the speakers. Now, when you're looking at your screen, you can actually go and to the left, which will be, to the left on your side, you have something called speakers, where you can see all our speakers coming during these 3 days. You can even book meetings with them or send them messages. The same thing you can do with other participants. In the lobby, you can see them, and lounge, you can sit down at a table and invite others to come so that you can have one-on-one meetings. Take the opportunity. And in the handouts later on, you will see our program. If you don't already have it, you can also find it on our webpage, www.weecentre.com. So we're also very curious about our audience today. I want to see where you all come from. So we're going to do a poll. And let me know. We're going to have two questions. One is where you're from. And then the other one is how long you've been engaged in e-waste management. So I just need to confirm that we have it on the screen. Because me, I'm seeing an admin screen. We wait with the poll a bit?
Yes.
Okay. Today's focus will be regulations and policies. We will talk about the EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility, amongst other things, and also transboundary movement of e-waste. We will talk about what kind of standards we have in different countries and how we can compare them, and also then how the practices are being done in different countries. I will do my very best to keep the schedule as tight as possible, since we have many that we want to listen to, so that everybody gets their time for their speeches and presentations. And then we will have panel discussions where you can all also share your questions. During the whole session, you can write in the right-hand side of your panel, there's a Q&A, where you can write questions in. And if you see someone else might have written the question you want to ask, you can actually just press the heart, you can like it. That means, and we can see how many who likes that question, which will also, of course, then be taken will be given more priority when we have the Q&A session and the panel discussion. So that's how that works. We would like to recognize our sponsors. It is Close the Gap Kenya, it is Close the Gap Belgium, along with World Loop, who are supporting us for this event. So we'd like to say a great big thank you for this. So now back to the poll. How are we doing?
Yeah.
We're on?
Yeah.
Okay, I just need to refresh this. So now it's active. You go to the polls in your right column, and you can submit your vote on which continent you're from. And me, I am in Africa, but I am from Europe, from Sweden. And then you submit your vote. And then comes the other question of how long have you been in the e-waste industry, or even known about this? So we will wait a while. Have you found it? It's in the right-hand side of your panel. It says polls. Polls. How are we doing? We want to share. Looking at my team here. Yeah, you share. Q, share the polls. Oh, I need to refresh perhaps. Sorry about that. Oh, here we go. Look at this. So it's an African conference, and we have 71% from Africa. That's a very good sign. We have 18% from Europe, 6% from North America, nobody from Antarctica, that feels okay, nobody from Australia, and nobody from South America so far. Thank you for that. And then we have the other question of how long you've been in the e-waste industry. Let me know when it's open.
It's open.
I can't see it.
At 9%.
Huh?
At 9%.
Yeah, but just come and help me. Oh, no, thank you. So we have 39% have been working in the e-waste industry or have known about this less than 1 year. Then we have 22% 1 to 3 years. And there must have been someone who has pressed more than 3 years. I know I did. So for some reason this does not. Okay, or maybe not. Well, great. Thank you for your participation so far in this introduction. And without further ado, I want to secure that we have Leon.
Dr. Virginia.
Okay, we will start with Dr. Why do I have this? Okay. Dr. Virginia Onyara, who is a consultant representing, sorry about this, Africa Telecommunication Union, talking about transboundary movement. So, Dr. Virginia, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Simone. Thank you very much for the entire team that has been working so hard to bring this conference together. My name is Dr. Virginia Onyara. I will be representing the African Telecommunication Union as the e-waste consultant. I'll be talking about how to be able to help us understand the transboundary movement of electrical and electronic waste. Probably I'll start with the introduction of how we started having this transboundary movement. It started way back in the 70s and 80s when there was a worldwide concern about the transboundary movement and disposal of hazardous waste. Reason being, there had emerged transboundary shipment of hazardous waste from industrialized nations for cheap disposal in inadequately prepared sites in developing countries. There's research to show that. There's reason to that has led to such information being shared by people, because people were bringing disposing hazardous waste in Africa, mostly Africa and other developing nations. This ignited a new urgency to develop and implement international controls, culminating in the Global Convention to control the transboundary movement of hazardous waste and their disposal, commonly what we call the Basel Convention. Apart from the Basel Convention, African countries were convinced that their peculiar circumstances were never taken into account nor protected by the Basel Convention, and through the OAU, they adopted the Bamako Convention. And what is transboundary movement, someone may ask? Transboundary movement of hazardous waste. It is a movement of hazardous waste from an area under the national jurisdiction of one state to or through an area under the national jurisdiction of another state, provided at least two states are involved in the movement. For example, if we have waste coming from Kenya being taken to Egypt, for example, those are two states. And the movement of that hazardous waste the handling and the transportation will move from different countries. Okay, maybe you're coming from Kenya, there's Eritrea, there's Djibouti, there's Somalia. So the entire movement has to be taken care of through the transboundary movement of hazardous waste protocols. And hazardous waste is basically what is waste that poses substantial or potential threats to public health or the environment. In many developed and developing countries, the treatment, the storage, and disposal of hazardous waste is regulated by specific policies. We have different policies, we have regulations, we have standards in our different countries, and it helps in the prevention and mitigating of the adverse effects of the effects of those e-waste to the environment and to the human health. Those are country-specific regulations or policies or instruments that each country uses. But for movement, we have mostly commonly conventions that we use commonly the Basel Convention, and here in Africa, we have the Bamako Convention. The Basel Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movements of Hazardous Waste and Their Disposal was adopted in 1989. Probably we should go back to history and find out why we began using the Basel Convention in 1989, but it came into force in 1992. It is the most comprehensive global environmental agreement on hazardous waste and other wastes. The convention aims to protect human health and the environment against the adverse effects resulting from the generation, transboundary movements, and the management of hazardous wastes. Okay, there's generation. It helps us, with the generation, transboundary movements, and management of that particular hazardous waste. It regulates the transboundary movement of hazardous waste and ensures that wastes are managed and disposed of in an environmentally sound manner. That is the ultimate, that at the end of the day, we are managing this waste in an environmentally friendly way so that it doesn't have an effect on our health or our environment. It covers toxic waste, poisonous waste, explosive waste, corrosive waste, flammables, and infectious waste. What about the Bamako? The Bamako Convention is a treaty of African nations providing the import into Africa as well as the dumping or incineration into the oceans and inland waters of hazardous waste, including the radioactive waste. It was adopted in 1991, came into force in 1998, with the aim of protecting human and environmental health. That is the ultimate, protecting people, protecting the environment. It came as a response to Article 11 of the Basel Convention, which encouraged parties to enter into bilateral, multilateral, regional agreements on hazardous waste to help achieve the objectives of the convention. It prohibits trade of hazardous waste to less developed countries. And maybe we should ask ourselves why the Bamako and why the LDCs or the less developed countries? Because at that time there was a realization that many developed nations were exporting toxic waste to Africa. I don't know if we have seen this even in current trends, that people are still importing, people are still bringing in, whether toxic or not, whether for their own businesses or not, but we can categorically say that this thing has not stopped. And some countries have continually targeted Africa and other least developed countries as the destination for hazardous waste under the pretext of we are going to reuse, we are going to recycle, and sometimes this equipment are only coming here for 2 years and then they will die. So as we continue with this conference, I hope we will be able to come up with more solutions of how best we are going to handle these unscrupulous dealers of these disposers. And from that understanding, I want to ask us a question, even as we progress for these two more days that are coming, the 3 days that we have, I would want us to think about this thing. Is e-waste only hazardous? Okay, I know most of us, we use the MCA in managing electronic waste. We have, our countries have categorized e-waste as hazardous, but with the understanding and the knowledge that you have, a poll has been done and most of us have been in e-waste for quite some time. Maybe the question that we should ask ourselves, is it just hazardous? Should we treat it as hazardous all through? Okay. And some people who have been there before us have thought about it, and in 2019, the Basel Convention acknowledged that there are many challenges in WEEE. Okay, and one of the implementation challenges that was noticed was the difficulty in distinguishing between waste and non-waste in WEEE. What is waste and what is not waste in electronic waste or in EEE? What do we consider waste and what don't we consider waste in EEE? So to address this issue in particular, the Conference of the Parties, or COP, adopted an improved version of the technical guidelines on transboundary movement of electrical and electronic waste, which also includes the used electrical and electronic waste. Okay, we in electronic waste, we talk about the circularity, we talk about the circular economy. We want these gadgets, we want this equipment to stay longer in the market, to stay longer in the usage, to reuse, reduce, to all those things that we use in the circularity. So they included the used electrical and electronic equipment because we use it again and again. Okay, we have, and most of you can agree with me that we have an issue with even the definition of electronic waste. What is electronic waste to you may not be electronic waste to somebody else. So these challenges brought about the issue of now having this technical guideline that will be able to help people to identify, is this waste for final disposal? Is this waste or something that I can use to get something else out of it, to reuse, to refurbish, all those things, to recycle and, use it for something else. There's a document, this technical guideline, that lists the criteria for defining, and I would urge you to look at it, okay, and see if it's a 2019 document. So 2019, then 2020 there was corona outbreak, the pandemic, and then not much happened then. So I would suggest that you look at the document and see how best you can use it for those who are recyclers, those who move equipment from one country to another. Probably you may want to look at the document to see whether it can help you. It lists criteria for defining waste, what is waste and what is non-waste under the BSR Convention, and suggests the type of documentation that should be required by authorities to prevent the illegal traffic. Now that we know what we know, I asked you a question about, is it only hazardous? We know that electronic waste is not only hazardous. It has hazardous components. It has those things that are bad to our health if handled improperly. But we also know it has valuable materials that can be recovered for recycling. And those materials include iron, aluminium, copper, gold, all those good things, and the rare earth metals that are included in the equipment. Thereby, they contribute to a sustainable resource management if we handle them properly. When we extract these metals from the earth, we deplete, Mother Nature is, squeezed to the end. Is it possible for us to do urban mining? Because I read somewhere that research has shown that whatever we have now, whatever gold we have now, whatever rare earth metals we have now is enough to serve us for a long time. Is it necessary for us to stop going to the fields, to the Mother Nature for mining and use whatever we have, what scholars call urban mining? Is it possible for us to do urban mining? The recovery and use of such materials as raw materials after they have become waste can increase the efficiency of their use and also lead to the conservation of energy and a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions when we use technologies that are adequate and the methods that we use also are adequate in recovery of those materials. We know that reuse of equipment, at least from the 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 20, and up to now in 2020s, we know that reuse of this equipment, or the reuse of the equipment after we have repaired them, we have refurbished them, can contribute even more to the sustainable development. Some of us are using refurbished equipment that were considered waste elsewhere, but we are using them comfortably now, okay? It leads to a more sustainable development. By extending the life of this EEE, we reduce the environmental footprint of the resource-intensive processes involved in producing the equipment. When we reuse also, we facilitate the availability of equipment to groups in societies that otherwise will not have access to it, okay? There are people who will not have access to an iPhone, for example, but because of the reusing, because people are able to, bring it down to give it or as donations or as recycled products or whatever, other people are able to afford them, okay? There are facilities in Africa that are able to refurbish, recycle. We know, even the WEEE Centre and other facilities around, they're able to refurbish, they're able to recycle this equipment for reuse. Since these facilities are not present in all countries, used equipment destined for repair or refurbishment may need to be moved across borders prior to reuse, back to our transboundary movement. What way for us as Africans? If, for example, I want to move something that I have recycled, or I want to recycle it in Kenya and I am in the Gambia, for example, or I'm in Mali, for example, and I want to bring it to Rwanda or to South Africa or to Kenya for refurbishment or for recycling, is my region, is Africa helping me in any way to move this thing? Because we have categorically shown that it is not only hazardous. Okay, there are those components that are good. There are those things that are good, things that we can be able to recover before we take it to the final disposal. Is Africa able to help me move this thing from Mali or the Gambia to Nairobi in Kenya or South Africa in Johannesburg for me to be able to recycle or refurbish and use it in my country or in another country that I purpose to take it to? So that moves me to the question that I want all of us to ponder through. Which way for Africa? Which way for us? Are we going to have, regional groupings like MENA, that is in North Africa, ECOWAS, South Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, coming together into groups and, having this multilateral or bilateral talks and see how best they can be able to handle the issue of e-waste? Just the same way like the Basel Convention saw the need, to handle e-waste in this manner. Is it possible for us to sit down together and discuss about it and see how best that we can help the recyclers, we can help the stakeholders who are handling electronic waste to be able to move this waste from one place to another where there's a facility that can be used to repair, to recycle, to, do all those circularity methods of keeping this equipment longer in usage so that they can be able to help in the sustainably managing the environment and keeping ourselves safe and healthy. Okay, maybe we can be thinking about that as we progress in the entire time when we're having this conference. I'll be happy to share. I'll be happy to share the insight and the knowledge that I have so that we can work together as a team. By the end of the third day, we can be able to come up with something and say, yes, this is the way for us in Africa. We have our own dynamics, we have our own issues, we are the recipients of this, and we have to come up with something that will guide us as Africans in the management of electronic waste and the handling, the logistics, the movement of electronic waste. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening. I'll be here for questions and answer. I really appreciate the time you have taken, the WEEE Centre, to invite me to speak about it, and I'll be here. Thank you very much, Simone.
Asante sana. Thank you, Dr. Virginia, for this very inspiring and also insightful opening remark speech. And like you said, people have opportunity, our audience can connect with you. And I will repeat, since I know now we are many more than when we started. So in your right-hand panel, there is a Q&A session where you can write your questions. And if you see someone who has written the question you would like to ask, you can just like that one where the heart is, and we will prioritize those that have gotten many hearts, many likes. And then you will also see in the handouts our program for these 3 days, along with now Dr. Virginia's base of her presentation about the transboundary movement. To the left, you have something called the lobby, where you can see all participants. You can send messages, you can chat with the people, and you can invite to say, let's go to the lounge and grab a seat, and you can have a one-on-one online talk. You can also see all the speakers there. And in the booths, you can meet with us from the WEEE Centre, and you can meet with our sponsors, Close the Gap. And have a look there but now we really want to also listen to everyone who is speaking. I know that. I'm just looking now. 2 seconds. We are having some electronic difficulties, the connection with our next speaker to do the opening remarks in place of Mercy Wanjao, who is the acting DG of Communication Authority of Kenya, is represented by Mr. Christopher Kimei, who's the director of Universal Service Fund. And he was with us just now, and we will see if he will be with us. Yes, now we have. Great. Much welcome, Mr. Kimei, for your remarks. And now you're seated with the lights behind you. If it's possible, try to have some light in front of you so that we can see you also. Perfect. Now, there you are. Great. Asante and welcome. Karibu.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I will be delivering some few remarks on behalf of the Acting Director General, Mrs. Mercy Wanjao, who, as much as she wished to have been with us this morning, it was not possible. So she asked me to deliver this message to the conference. Mr. Cyril Lacera Siewe, the Program Officer, Chemicals and Wastes of the UNEP Nairobi, Mr. Pascal Leroy, Director General of the West Electrical and Electronic Equipment Center, Mr. Ibukun Fulia, the Executive Secretary of EPRON, Nigeria, Mr. Luca Campardello of Irion, Italy, Dr. Ali Simba of IACO, the Executive Secretary of IACO, Mamo B. Mamo, Director General of NEMA, Boniface Mbithi, CEO of the West Electrical and Electronic Equipment, distinguished guests and speakers, the E-West stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to join you at this inaugural African Sustainable E-West Conference and Expo, which has an apt theme of unlocking the potential in sustainable e-waste management while achieving a circular economy. I wish to thank the West Electrical and Electronic Equipment Center for organizing this continental event that provides all the stakeholders with a chance to evaluate the efforts to address the e-waste challenge that ironically is a byproduct of the strides made in enhancing access to ICT services for our people, for example. Indeed, this explains our interest in this area since the industry we regulate is probably the greatest generator of e-waste. We are cognizant of the fact that we are having this conference at a time the region is still reeling from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic, whose impact has been twofold. On one hand, the pandemic has battered our economies to a great scale and slowed down overall growth indicators. On the other hand, it has led to a surge in uptake of ICTs, which have played a key role in coping with the COVID pandemic. In Kenya, for instance, data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics indicates that the value of Kenyan telecommunication gadgets imports, including computers, laptops, smartphones, are surged more than half to Kenya shillings 8 billion in 4 months of the COVID-19 lockdown. This is because people started working from home and education institutions turned to electronic learning. But this positive trend dovetails into today's conversation on the risk posed by e-waste, not only in Kenya, but also regionally, and thus the need to have creative ways in addressing this emerging issue. Another area of concern has to do with the influx of counterfeit electronic devices, often substandard and with a shorter lifespan, contributing to a high level of e-waste and threatening the entire value chain. It is for this reason that the authority works hand in hand with the Kenya Bureau of Standards to ensure that what is imported into this country meets the minimum standards as a way of addressing the first R of reduce e-waste. Huge amounts of e-waste in our homes, workplace, and dumping points need concerted efforts by all stakeholders, including manufacturers and suppliers of these devices, as well as users and regulators for effective disposal mechanism. Such engagements go a long way in raising the importance of e-waste and encourage consumers to correctly dispose of their e-waste with emphasis on reuse and recycling. It is our expectation that the ongoing efforts to have in place specific e-waste and extended producer responsibility regulations in Kenya and the East African region as a whole will strengthen the above collaborative initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, let me recognize the efforts of WEEE Centre in ensuring that there is refurbishment and donation of ICT gadgets for reuse. I also underscore their efforts in collection and recycling of e-waste across Africa. E-waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the world, with statistics painting rather grim picture. As an emerging phenomenon, e-waste, if not well checked, can be a severe human health and environmental disaster. However, better management of e-waste can also create business and economic benefits, as I can see that this will be discussed in this conference. At the regulatory level, there is need to be carefully regulated producers to assist countries in managing an end of life cycles of electronic and electrical products, which is generally shorter than 3 years. But besides bringing the e-waste challenge into the public consciousness, all of us gathered here still need to complement this discussion by ensuring that we make the right procurement choices of electronic devices and ensuring that we make electronic products last longer through e-friendly designs and repairs. Distinguished stakeholders, in Kenya, we are making strides to address the e-waste menace. In line with the National Environment Management Authority, NEMA, guidelines on e-waste management and the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, National E-Waste Management Strategy, the ICT regulator has undertaken a number of interventions along this policy direction. Firstly, we have made it a requirement for licensees to ensure that their telecommunication installations do not become a health hazard, environmental or safety hazard. Secondly, that such facilities are not in contravention of any statute, rule, code of practice, guidelines, or regulations on public safety requirements. Lastly, the licensees are required to ensure that the license system comply with the relevant environmental laws. I wish to report that we are currently exploring how to encourage the ICT players to adopt the consumer tech-backed schemes to ensure that e-waste is better managed. The authority, as a member of the National E-Waste Management Committee headed by the Minister of Environment and Forestry, participates in numerous initiatives aimed at better managing e-waste in this country. The other initiatives include aligning our assessment processes to ensure that only green ICT equipments are type approved for use in this country. We have also developed infrastructure sharing guidelines, which will, among others, reduce the negative environmental impact by ICT installations. On a smaller scale, the authority has also installed enough e-waste specific bins within premises and have in place related disposal mechanisms which promote the use of licensed e-waste handlers. Distinguished participants, at the regional level, we are an active member in the ongoing e-waste management initiatives where we are the chair of the technical working group responsible for e-waste management and green ICTs within the East African Community Organization, popularly known as YACO. The authority also participates in e-waste management at the international level in the various initiatives rolled out by the International Telecommunications Union. Kenya participates in relevant ITU study groups and has incorporated some of the ITU recommendations in the guidelines on the minimum features and technical specifications for mobile cellular devices imported and distributed in Kenya. This initiative assists the first R of e-waste management, which is to reduce e-waste. I wish to reiterate that we remain committed to the ideals and ongoing efforts on e-waste management and will stay committed to the principles of the circular economy. With that, it is now my singularly honor and duty to declare the first East African Sustainable e-waste Conference and Expo officially open. I wish you all a fruitful discussion. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kime. That was wonderful. I totally agree with all of what you've been saying and pointing out the economic benefits that are possible, the green procurement that is necessary for us to really move forward quickly, repairing and extending life, enhancing the retention value for all the products and materials that we have, making take-back schemes possible and helping each other with that. And also by that, I want to thank the Communications Authority by being such good role models, having e-waste bins in all your offices and collecting e-waste. So that is great. Thank you so much, Mr. Kime. Now, we will see if there are any questions straight away here. No. Okay. So I will go through it again, how to do this, because now I see that we are 95 people within the whole platform, and then additionally 50 looking at this. So when you go to your right-hand side, you have different buttons, which shows who the partners are, the discussion, and then a Q&A, and you can write any kind of question that you want us to highlight and bring up during the panel discussion later on, or even right now we could do. You have the panelists, you have the polls, and actually I've seen that they are still open, so that's good, and many more have been answering the polls. So now we know that 43% have been in the e-waste industry more than less than 1 year. And then we have 38% more than 3 years, and 19% are new at this with e-waste. Wonderful to have you all here. And then which continent? We have 80% from Africa right now, 12 from Europe, 14 from North America, and 4 from Asia. Welcome. Warm welcome. Our next speaker, let me see. Excuse. Do we have? It is not yet exactly time, So our next speaker is also from North America. So we will wait a bit for her. And while doing that, I can also go through the left-hand side of this platform, where you have the lobby and you can see all the participants. When you go there, you can send messages to them, as well as to the speakers, which you also have a button for the speakers. And then in the lounge, there are seats where you can grab a seat, but preferably tell someone first, let's go to the lounge, and we grab a seat next to each other, and you can have a one-on-one or even 4 people talking at the same time with each other. So we really encourage that, and since we are now having a bit of a pause, Melissa is to step on at 10 a.m. Eastern African time. So we still have some minutes to wait for her to come on. You also have the booths where you can learn more about the WEEE Centre and what we're doing here in Nairobi, Kenya, and all over Kenya and parts of Africa, along with our sponsors, Close the Gap, Kenya, Close the Gap, Belgium, and World Loop, and what they are doing with their... let me see now. And like I said, in the handouts, you will find the program for these 3 days with the transboundary movement speech that Dr. Virginia Onyaro held. Good. Let us just decide we have a bit of a break. Yeah. We really would love for you to ask some questions, then we can bring them up if you have any in the Q&A section. That's the way to interact and have your voice heard in this conversation. Having a virtual conference is always a challenge for you guys to feel welcome and that you're interactive. We hope you, since we have many on the on the platform, I hope that is because some are interacting with each other, and then we have some that are watching here in the screen where I'm talking right now. But do make your voice heard as if we were meeting at a physical conference. Do we have yeah.
Technology